See, it's starting to bubble in nicely. Gotta be careful because it's the first pizza. This is where you're getting used to the temperature of the stone at the start. Morning. Hello, welcome. Welcome to TRW Pizza. Time for a new video, something that a few of you have been reaching out for. First and foremost, I want to say thanks so much for the support and really kind messages I'm getting on this channel. It's only been live, the channel, for a very short space of time. But I must say the passion in the pizza making community is immense. People are super supportive. I am no pizza pro. I just, enjoy doing some home cooking on my Ooni 16. I'm learning from scratch. I've got no previous experience. And you guys are amazing. I just really want to say thank you very much first, and then move on to what this video is going to be about. A number of comments over the past few weeks have been, can you just tell me exactly how you make your dough, which produces the pizzas you show, in kind of more detail, specific amounts of ingredients, show it weighed out. And I understand why, because essentially, when you are trying to convey how to make pizza, there's so many different elements. Sometimes it can get to the point where you skip over stuff that you're so used to doing on a daily basis that you just forget that some people who are brand new don't understand that element, and you basically take it for granted. So this video is going to be exactly what I do step by step to achieve the dough that I use on my Ooni Koda 16 to produce what I feel is pretty good results. I've been making these pizzas now. I've had the Ooni itself for about, I believe, 4 months. And at the start it was challenging. I was making mistakes in terms of the dough, in terms of the cooking method, but now I'm getting consistently good results. And I'm going to show you the dough I use to achieve those results. Now, the dough itself is going to be essentially a 66% hydration dough. It's going to be a direct dough, i.e. I am going to not make it with a bigger or autolyze or any other processes which might be a bit confusing for people who are just starting out. I actually, even though I understand those principles, I still use a direct dough because for me, I'm pretty busy day to day at the moment. I need the kind of simplest way to make a great quality pizza. And for me, this direct dough method approach is the way to do that. Now, what that actually means is that I will talk you through this right now. I'm going to make the dough today. I'm going to ball it up and put it in the Ooni Stack today. It's going to go in the fridge overnight. It's going to come out of the fridge for about 45 minutes to an hour. And tomorrow I'm going to cook those pizzas and show you them later on in this video. So I'm going to commence now and show you exactly what I do to make my dough. It's going to be very conversational. I don't like doing things too formally. But I'm going to make sure that every single step is clear and every single weight is clear. I'm going to make six pizza balls at 280 grams each at 66% hydration. So let's commence. I'm going to show you first of all exactly what ingredients we need. A bit of coffee, get the ball rolling. I must say, making pizza at any stage, for me, it's really important to make sure you're feeling quite energetic, because you've got to put passion and love and energy into each stage of it, including making the dough. So early in the morning with a nice strong coffee is how I tend to commence this process. Now, what am I going to need in terms of ingredients and implements actually? So, one thing's really clear for me is that a good service makes a big difference. This company called Silpat, it's a French company, it says made in France. I don't know much about it. My wife bought it. It's excellent. It says perfect pastry here. And all it does is just creates a very easy put down non-stick surface. You don't get flour all over your kitchen top or your table, which is great. I'm going to be needing 2 classic bowls, kitchen grade bowls. I'm going to be needing my flour, which I personally use the Caputo Pizzeria flour, Tipo 00. I'm not a great expert in terms of what all the different flours do, but I know this one's worked for me excellently over the past few months. I have tried other ones. I don't necessarily say it's the other ones aren't good, just this is the one that consistently delivers for me, so I stick to using that one. I also need some yeast, so I use this Caputo Lievito. It's Secco 100% Italian dry yeast, and I feel that it's a very powerful and potent yeast. I don't need much of it at all. I'm going to show you how much I put into my 6 pizzas shortly. I also need some salt, and the salt is, for me, always these days, this Campesi 100% Italian fine sea salt. It's not quite powdery, but it's classic. It's just very, very fine. Means it absorbs into the water very easily, and it's just got an excellent flavor to it. It's Italian. I like using Italian brands in general, and yeah, that's just been my staple for many months now. Also, olive oil. So I don't actually put olive oil directly into my dough as a kind of percentage to go in, but what happens is, as I go through the process of preparing the dough and kneading it and preparing it and cutting it, I do drop olive oil into it, and also I put olive oil on my hands to make sure that it doesn't, the dough doesn't stick too much. I do it by this beautiful cruet which I have here. Basically, I always make sure, let's have a quick check. Yeah, this could do with topping up a bit. I just top this up to make sure there's a decent amount in there. I, wherever possible, go for really, really good quality olive oil, simply because I think the taste is excellent. You know what you're getting. This is extra virgin from Italy, and it is called Badalucco extra virgin olive oil. So there's my cruet primed. I've also got a scale here. I actually want to get another scale which has got a finer measuring amount as well, but right now that's all I need. Then I've got obviously a spoon for some bit of mixing, and I've got a couple of, actually I've got 3 different types of spatulas. I've got one for cutting, which we'll be using when we start to make the dough balls, the dough into dough balls. I've got one which is this lovely flexible rubber one. Helps you get round corners, helps you get into the nooks and crannies of a bowl like that and get bits of flour out that you wouldn't be able to with this or with this. And you have this one which is more for the classic kind of manipulation of a pizza ball, pulling it out in a nice succinct way, where this might maybe not catch all the edges. This would be too big. So yeah, 3 different types of spatula. Not everyone needs 3 different types of spatula, but that's what I've over the last few months collected, and I use every single time I make pizza these days. And of course, water. So it's a big topic of conversation, what kind of water you put in your pizzas and what temperature should be. Now, I do not claim to be an expert. I'm not an expert, but I've made a lot of pizza. And what I find is temperature of water, as long as it's room temperature, it kind of works for me with my approach. I'm sure there's other approaches where it has to be finely measured and make sure it's perfect temperature. If it's room temperature, this is fine, you don't have to think about it again. I do use Italian water. Here I've got Acqua Panna from Tuscany. I do think that much more important to the temperature of the water is the quality of the water. Same with drinking, but for me personally, I do pay that extra for good quality mineral water. I actually normally try and get glass bottled mineral water if at all possible. A little bit extra to pay and a little bit extra to carry in terms of weight. But I think that's a sensible kind of lifestyle choice personally, just because it's water is so important to the system, so get the good stuff if you can. I'll be using this to create my pizza. Now, that is it. Remember, the real ingredients that we're using are simply flour, yeast, salt, water. Let's just put everything else aside. let's make this 100% clear and easy for everyone. You have 4 ingredients: flour, yeast, salt, water. I have some olive oil on the side, but that's not classed as an ingredient as such in my mind. I just use it to lubricate the dough in my hands. But yes, 4 ingredients, easy. No, I don't use honey or anything like that. I did put previously when I was making pizza on the home oven, in the home oven on a pizza stove. Unnecessary. I still don't quite understand why honey is recommended. Again, I might be missing something. To me, I'm getting very good results without any honey whatsoever. So let's go for step 1 of making my pizza dough with these simple 4 ingredients. Step 1 is to go to the pizza dough app. I use the Ooni one. I put in how many balls I want. It says 6. Ball weight will be 275 grams. Water 66%. And here we go. So what I've done there is I'll come and show you close up. Here we go. So I've put in 6 dough balls, 275 grams, 66% hydration, and then at the bottom it automatically calculates 976 grams of flour, 644 grams of water, 29 grams of salt, 2.7 grams of yeast. I'm not going to use quite that much, and 0 grams of oil because I put in the presets, I'm not putting olive oil in there as an actual ingredient. So now it's time to start making the pizza dough. It's so easy, guys. I really encourage anyone who's a little bit kind of overwhelmed by the thought of making your own pizza dough. It's just practice. I know I sound like a broken record if you watch my previous videos, but it really is. Very quickly you'll start making great results. 2 other things which I should have mentioned. One is a measuring teaspoon. This is half a teaspoon. This is just for the yeast, just because I like making sure I've got roughly the right amount of yeast to go in. I'm not super scientific about my measuring. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. However, I do like it to be accurate for the yeast. And then of course a apron, simply because getting flour all over your clothes is an unnecessary hassle. Now, of course, the reason why you can tell that I'm making a video today is simply because the washing machine is on. If I say I'm going to be making a video, my wife goes out and leaves the washing machine on. Good. Now, I'm going to pull up the app again, which showed me how much ingredients I need. First of all, step 1. I'm going to get my flour and mix it with the yeast. So I zero that. This is 1 kilogram of flour. I need 976 grams of flour. So I know I can pretty much put this all in here, apart from a little bit. 878, 9, 6, 972, 973. At this point, it really doesn't matter down to the gram, but if it says 976, let's try and get 976. I've got 977, fine. Happy with that. So I've got a little bit of flour there left, which will be nice for helping with the dough later if I need to use it just to help move it around or get any dry spots covered up when I'm going to make the pizza. Next up is the yeast. I know a lot of you might be thinking, why are you putting your yeast in? You haven't got any water going yet. It's the way that I have followed actually since I started using this Kabuto yeast, because it says, let me just bring this round just so you don't think I'm going crazy. Let me show you. Can you read this? Mix through flour. It does not need to be dissolved in water beforehand. So, that's what I do. I'm a firm believer in, if they're the experts, that's for the experts. And what I'll do is, for these 6 dough balls at 275 grams, I will put just under half a teaspoon of this yeast. So I'll show you up close what that looks like. Just again, for anyone who's wondering, it's a tiny amount of yeast. That's all you need. It is not necessary to do any more than that. Trust me, it seems like a small amount, but it's not. And I'll prove that because I'm going to make the pizzas and show them to you at the end of this video. And you'll say, oh yeah, that looks about right. So there's the flour and the yeast. The yeast is now sat on the flour. All I have to do is mix it very briefly. As you can imagine, all those little yeastlets, those yeast particles, are mixing in to a roughly uniform ratio across that flour, and then that's going to get kneaded and mixed with water, well, mixed with water and kneaded, and then kneaded again a second time, and then made into dough balls, and then it will grow. So it doesn't need a huge lot of mixing. I'm happy with that at this point. That is the flour and yeast element done. Next step, let's just get the water bit done. So again, pull up my pizza app. It says 644 grams of water. Now, people might be saying, why aren't you using milliliters? Why are you using grams? It's honestly just the most accurate way of measuring apples for apples. You're using actual weight versus volume, and it's it's essentially how professionals do it. So who am I to argue? 644. And I'm at 640. 646. Okay, so now we have. I can go away. Now we have the water there, measured at the correct amount versus the flour. Now, let's not get flour in my salt. Into here, I'm not going to be too methodical about this. On the app it says 29 grams of salt. I'm going to put a good heaped tablespoon in there. For me, that's enough. I don't need to make it absolutely perfect. As long as the water's pretty salty, I'm happy. So the salt's in there, I'm then mixing it. And as I say, this Campese fine sea salt, because it's the fine sea salt, it mixes in really nicely. Imagine if that was a coarser sea salt or flakes or something, you're going to have a bit of a job making sure it's all perfectly soaked in, and there's no more particles in there. But because it's fine sea salt, look, it's done. There's no more bits of salt in there. It's just salty water. As salty as the Mediterranean Sea. So let's recap. What have we done? And again, I'm taking this slowly and easily because I want people to be able to follow it, understand exactly what's going on, not misunderstand anything, no ambiguity. You know exactly how my dough is being made, and then can replicate it yourselves and put it in your Ooni 16 or whatever other oven you use and make great pizza. So I have got my flour in here, 976 grams of flour. I've added just under half a teaspoon of the yeast to this flour. I've put 644 grams of water into here, and I've added a heaped tablespoon of sea salt into here. Those two ratios of flour and water equal a 66% hydration dough. It's simple. If you do the maths on it, 644 grams of water is 66% of 976 grams of flour. What is 976 grams? What's 66% of 976? It's 644. That's what the hydration means, and it is rather simple if you ask me. Now, the flour and yeast mixture gets tipped into the water. Done. Let's avoid getting too much stickiness on our hands. There's always going to be some stickiness, it's inevitability on the first part of this mixing. But we can avoid a lot of that by just using a spoon for the first bit. It's not even a, here you're just introducing the flour to the water. It's a lovely part of the process. You get all these great, beautiful, good quality ingredients all melding together. You will notice 100% of the ingredients in this bowl are Italian, great quality Italian produce. Italian flour, Caputo, Italian water, Acqua Panna, Italian sea salt, Campesi, and Italian yeast, Caputo. So here we're starting to see a nice amount of clumping of the water, the flour. It's getting to the point now where it's going to need some hand intervention. It's getting to the point when that happens that you start getting ready to put it on this perfect pastry or whatever surface you're using. I'll move it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see even better. And it's also getting to the point now where you're going to see when I add some of my olive oil into this process. You heard me say I don't use it as a specific ingredient. I use it as a kind of peripheral to help the process, and in turn it therefore becomes an ingredient, but I don't ever have a specific amount of olive oil I want to be using in my dough. At the end of it all, I guess it's somewhere between 1 and 2 tablespoons for six dough balls. But honestly, it doesn't matter. If I ended up doing this with 0 olive oil, I wouldn't care. And if I ended up doing it more than that, I wouldn't care. So you can see it's, I'm just going to come around and have a look, make sure the camera is capturing that nicely. See if I need to zoom in at all. I think that's good. Have a little top up of my coffee. So yeah, while I'm having a drink, guys, of coffee, let me know what you think about this process in the comments below. Again, I'm not saying this is the right way or perfect. However, what I'm saying is it's worked for me consistently over maybe 300, 400 pizzas now. So I'm very happy to share it with you and see if it works for you. But please, I'm completely open. In fact, I love it when people say, I suggest you try X, Y, Z. I've got a comment the other day saying I should really try the bigger method, which I will be doing soon. But right now, I'm just going for this to show you the simplest approach that I find works. Great coffee. Because it's in the morning, I'll have a coffee with this. Sometimes if it's in the evening, I'll be having a glass of red wine maybe, or a beer, because this is one of my favorite parts of the day, making dough. This is one of the wonderful things about making pizza. It's an experience. It's something which I just believe is one of the most, here goes some olive oil by the way, wholesome things anyone can do, whether it's pizza dough or bread dough. Not that I make bread myself, but just making great food with love and passion that's going to feed the family. That's what you're after in life, in my humble opinion. So here we're starting to see some like kind of stranding appear in the dough now, which is starting to show that we're getting a little bit of a reaction, and very quickly this stuff starts to collect some glutinous properties, and it's the gluten which holds it all together. And over the course of the next 20 hours or so, we'll turn it into a beautiful 6 pizza balls, which I'm going to show you cooking. Now, at this point, I suspect this is when, and looking back, because remember I was a beginner less than a year ago, this is the point where people start to panic when they're making pizza. And there is zero reason to panic at this stage. They panic because they think this is just a clumpy mess and it doesn't look like dough and it's the wrong consistency and it's all sticky and dough balls aren't meant to be sticky and dough balls aren't meant to be clumpy. What's going on? I've failed, I've done something really wrong, I'm stupid. No, I had that feeling a lot of times the first few times I made dough. That's incorrect. What's happening is that you are looking at the melding of these different ingredients, and they're just starting to kind of build that relationship with each other. They're just starting to get on together and understand that they are about to create what is literally a chemical reaction between each other, and start to create that gluten and the fibers and the growth and the fermentation with the yeast, and that is where the magic starts to happen. Already you'll see it's starting to change its look and feel. The olive oils helped just give it a little bit of a let's say increase in let's say olive oils helped. I'm thinking about the right word. It's almost like it's given it a little bit of magic that helps it all start to work together. Sorry, I couldn't think of a smart or helpful term or reference point there. Yeah, it's really like just the magic that helps it start to do something. And look what I'm doing. I'm not like doing hours and hours of kneading. It doesn't need it. Honestly, for the time being, that's fine. I'll do a little bit more just because I want to show you. The process I'm doing here is just making sure that there's no clumps of flour that haven't yet been introduced to the water. It's very easy. We're going to do another knead on this in 20 minutes, and you'll see the dough changes again. But yeah, that's it. So we're now at the point where I will get out this Ooni dough cutter just because it helps bring together all those little bits. Don't worry if they seem a bit dry or hard or whatever. It's alright, they all get mixed in. So, a little bit more olive oil on there, tiny amount, but just again helps the consistency, helps it become a little bit less sticky on your hands. And what do you see here? What you see is you're going from a glutinous mess, not a glutinous mess, that's unfair on the dough, sorry. It goes from a glutinous pile with lots of dough and flour and bits sticking on the mat and things like that, to being a nice, uniform, well-behaved, reasonably compliant bit of dough, which I can kind of knock around, and it's no longer sticking. You see? this is absolutely fine for the next stage. The next stage is simply, don't worry too much about the shape or anything. The next stage is simply getting the bowl. I used the bowl which had the water in, doesn't really matter, over the top, and in 20 minutes we'll come back. You see my hands are a little bit sticky. Obviously I'll give them a wash now, but it's not a disaster. I'm not like up to my wrists in klart and you know, got the dog and the cat running around with bits clumps of dough in their fur. You know, it's very easy to manage and maintain. Just pull it off like this. I'm a big believer in not wasting anything if at all possible, so there's extra bits can go on there. And yeah, so that's stage one. I think you can see zero stress, super straightforward, remain calm, confident, move the dough confidently, have command over the dough, don't let the dough have command over you. Enjoy it. This is a beautiful process, and in 20 minutes we'll come back. So it's actually 20 to 11 right now in the morning, and at 11 o'clock we'll come back and have a look at how that dough has changed. So see you in 20 minutes. As promised, it's 11:01 actually. Here we are. Let's see how we are with this dough. This is arguably the easiest part of preparing your dough. Very, very low effort involved in this stage. Let's just take that off. You can see a little bit of dough's been left over on the edges there. Again, waste not, want not. Let's just pull it off. It's still nice and soft, it's not dried up or anything. And it goes on there like comme ça. So, next stage is simply a little bit of olive oil on the hands again, and on the dough, not a lot, just enough to lubricate. Remember, olive oil is an oil, and oil is a lubricant, and that is why it's such a useful thing to use when you're doing something like manipulating dough. But you'll notice this is not sticky anymore. It's been 21 minutes since we last saw this, and it was a bit sticky at the end, not too bad. But now it's just a beautiful, glazed, smooth, congruous mass of dough which has started to build gluten. It's started to build some lovely texture and strength to it. Obviously, this dough is only about 20 to 30 minutes old in total since we started putting the, let's say 35 minutes since we started putting the flour and the water together. So it has still a fair amount of way to go. We're going to be balling this up in a couple of hours and then putting it in the fridge overnight. But then we'll be making pizza. You'll see the pizza looks great. All I'm doing at this point is not even kneading it really. I'm just kind of folding it over, pushing it in on itself a bit, just to make sure that we are happy with the mixing of all the flour and water. And then I'm just letting under its own gravity, the dough fall down on itself like this. You see? And it's starting to look like that beautiful kind of mushroom top, round. Let's get a close up of this wonderful piece of art, right? Underneath it looks like this. On top it's looks like this. There's zero stickiness now. This is exactly the same dough that you saw before. Nothing's changed. It's just started to develop its own gluten. Therefore it's become Nice and easy to work with, compliant, you might say. And there, I'm happy. I am happy. Again, don't worry hugely about the shape of this at this point. It's going to get cut up into dough balls in a couple of hours. What I'll do now is just put a little bit of olive oil in there. That'll just help the process of getting it out when it's time to come out in 2 hours. Tiny bit of olive oil on top, which from my understanding, look, this isn't absolutely critical, but it just helps create a slight protection from the elements, protection from the oxygen, stops the dough drying out on the top, and therefore make sure it's going to be extra beautiful and fresh when we start to cut up the dough balls. Let me show you one more time up close now. Hope you can see how this has got zero stickiness to it. It's just a beautiful mass of dough which is ready to be used. And it goes into this dough, into this bowl now. I mean, how long did that take all in all? If I wasn't doing the camera work there, I think that would have taken less than 2 minutes. On goes some cling film at this point. In the previous part of the process, the bowl over the top was fine because it's staying out a bit longer for 2 hours. In the bowl, this will get a bit of cling film on it to keep it airtight. On it goes. I'll show you up front because in 2 hours we're going to take the cling film off and see how it looks after that. And let me just get the tea towel. I'm not 100% sure that you need to cover this over, but that's what I've read in the books. So let's do that. The time is now 9 minutes past 11. So 9 minutes past 1, in 2 hours, we will cut that up into 6 dough balls, put it in the fridge overnight, and make the pizzas tomorrow for lunch. See you soon, guys. Okay, 2 hours later, maybe 2 hours and 3 minutes later, it's about 14 minutes past 1. Let's see how our dough is looking. So, as you'll remember, we left this batch of 6, enough dough for 6 dough balls, covered with cling film and a tablecloth, why am I saying tablecloth? I've lost the cloth. Here we go, here's the dough. Tea towel, thank you. Here's the dough, you can see it's grown a bit, being just obviously room temperature, hasn't touched the fridge at all. This is the consistency, it's pushing back, you can see it's already got a bit of bounce to it. Tiny little bubbles appearing. Those little flecks you can see hopefully up there. They indicate that yeast is nice and active and already started to make some moves on making that dough grow. It's obviously grown in volume a little bit too, not a huge amount, but a bit. Now what we'll be doing in this stage is cutting up the dough for it to go into the Ooni Stack and also the tray here for the 6 balls at 275 grams. So all I need is scale. I normally put a bit of greaseproof paper on there just so the dough doesn't get stuck on the scale. I'll zero that. I have this spatula to help get the dough out onto here. I have the Ooni Dough Cutter to cut up the dough, which it always does a fantastic job of. And yeah, it's a fairly straightforward part of the process once you've done it a couple of times. I don't put any flour on here with this non-stick surface. It doesn't really need it, I find. The dough's going to come out very, very easily. You'll have noticed me talk about the spatula a few times. For this particular purpose, it's just so good at getting dough out of a round bowl. Obviously, you'd imagine if I was trying to get it out with this, it wouldn't work. And if I was trying to get it out with this, it wouldn't be the right shape. This just works really nicely. That's why I recommend it. Out it comes. There you go. Clean bowl, a little bit of olive oil left over there, but this is how the dough now looks. This is for 6 dough balls of 275 grams each at 66% hydration. The next step is you basically just not got to overthink this. It's really straightforward. Just turn on the scale again. I give it an eyeball, Mark 1 human eyeball, 50-50 cut, straight down the middle with the Ooni Dough Cutter. Obviously I just need to cut this in half and then cut each of the halves into 3 and we are good to go. Try and make them into an oblong so that it makes it easier to get roughly the right weight on the first cut, but it's never going to be absolutely perfect. Here we go. So I always find it helps to elongate it a bit in order to get an eyeball on what will be roughly a third of each of these. So I'm going to say that's a third, and it's therefore 1 dough ball. I'm going to say that's a third, is therefore 1 dough ball. I can tell this one's small already, so I'm going to have to put some dough into that from one of these two. But right now, don't worry about the shape too much, just to keep them aside. Same process here, just put it into a nice kind of submarine shape. Again, eyeball it. It's about a third. It's about a third. Sometimes you just nail it off the bat and these things are perfectly weighted. Sometimes that's not the case, but either way it's not a big deal because it's very easy to align them. So we're looking for roughly 275 grams per dough ball. It's never going to be an exact science, and they're not all going to perfectly add up to 275. However, that's roughly what we're looking like. And all I'm doing now is just feeding the underside of the dough into itself here. So you can see, by the way, it's already started to bubble up quite a lot now. I'm exposing it to the air, so it's interesting to see. There you go, that's roughly one. Okay, I'm not making this up. I'm actually going to bring the camera around for this because this is remarkable. There we go. 275 grams dough ball. Some kind of miracle. I guarantee it will not be the case for all of them, but yeah, there you go. Sometimes I'm just a lucky guy. So that is exactly the size of dough ball that I'm after on a uniform basis. This is going to make it a nice sized pizza on my 16-inch Ooni, but yeah, these ones are going to be a bit small. This is going to be 250, so that's going to need a bit of extra. This one's going to be too big. This is 325, so that's significantly too big. So all you do is, you just chop off a bit. 325 comes down to 275. I'm not going to show that again, but that actually says 275. I don't know what's happening today, but that's awesome. This one's going to be way too small. 190. 190, I add the extra dough here straight into it. I just fold it into the bottom. Don't worry too much about it being too neat. Let the dough ball fall into itself. It still actually feels a little bit light, but I could be wrong. 238, yeah, it is a bit too light, so 238. So that goes there. We know these two are good. We know this one's a bit light. This is 248. A little bit light. This one, 299, a little bit big. Let's cut a bit off here. In here. 263. 272. So that goes there with the, so these are where I'm happy. This is where it needs playing around size-wise a bit. This is way too big. 292, not way too big actually, 292. So let's take a small amount off. Look how nicely that dough cutter does the job. It's great. So 269, 263, 274, and then we know we've got 275, 275, and I think that was 269 or something. So these are fine. Never perfect. Well, actually, these two are perfect, but never worry about it being absolutely to the exact number that you need. Within, you know, 5-10 grams is absolutely fine. That's the beauty of pizza. They are not uniform. They're not all the same. And if they were, they wouldn't be as good. So here now I'm just very gently but confidently feeding the dough into itself here, tucking it in, not allowing any bubbles or gaps to be going in there, so that the dough then forms into a ball shape. Let's give myself a little bit of olive oil on the hand, because these dough balls are now going to benefit from a little bit of olive oil to keep the exposure to the oxygen a little bit lower while I go through this process. Again, just folding it in. You can see some bubbling already coming through. Again, that yeast, this yeast, as I say, it's very potent, it's very active. Much more active than previous yeast I used to use. Therefore, that's why I used that small amount which I showed you. It was less than a teaspoon. And this is only, this dough is what, 2.5 hours old. It was just flour and water 2.5 hours ago, so the fact that we've got these bubbles already coming through is quite remarkable. But that's how it works. Let me show you this up close. You'll like it. Look at this. Here's the bubble coming through already. See, it's active. Just in room temperature. Another dough ball there. Get this one up. So you might be wondering, okay, so what's next? What's the process? Well, honestly, we're pretty much done. I will stack these up in the Ooni Stack and in the baking tray, because I don't have another Ooni Stack. They will sit at room temperature for another hour or so, and then just go in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow lunchtime, they will come out the fridge about 45 minutes to an hour before they are due to be cooked in the Ooni Koda 16, and then that's it. So you've seen a 3-step process take place basically. You've seen the dough being made and left to rest for 20 minutes. That's step 1. You've seen the dough then being allowed to proof at room temperature for 2 hours, and that is step 2. And then step 3 now is divide up the dough balls into the number of pieces that you designed the dough for, and put them in their whatever container you're going to proof them in for room temperature for an hour or so. Don't be too worried about the timings. Could go straight in the fridge immediately if you wanted to, although I personally feel it helps just to develop a bit more gluten and reactivity if you wait a little bit longer. And then that's it. So now, just to help them get out of the stack easier when it's time to do so, I'm just going to rub some oil into the bottom there. And in to the stack it goes. 1, 2, 3, and this simply goes 1, 2, 3. This, touch more olive oil here. Again, just a dab, because what it does is helps the dough come out easier when it's time for it to come out. 1, 2, 3. And cover this with some cling film. I will use the cling film I used previously because I don't like waste. Okay guys, that's your dough made. Remember, 1 more hour at room temperature for both of these. After that hour, they go into the fridge overnight. I'm more than happy to cook after 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. After 48 hours for me, the dough consistency changes a bit, so I prefer to have it within 24 hours, but it still makes great pizza. It's not my favorite consistency of dough. But I will be cooking these 6 pizzas tomorrow and showing you, and you can see that. I'll probably do it in the next video, simply because this video is getting quite long and it'd probably be easier if I just make it a part 2. So I hope you found this useful, guys. Like and subscribe. Come and watch me eat these pizzas tomorrow on the next video. Take care. Hey guys, here we are, the next day. About 24 hours later, give or take. I'm going to start cooking these pizzas shortly. I just want to show you the state of play. I'll open up the stack so you can see what the dough looks like. Here you go. It's not overly fermented, it's not like burst up. It's actually about 20 minutes out of the fridge, so it's just warming up, and it will get a little bit more, it will grow a little bit over the next 40 minutes or so before I start cooking them. They're the ones in the stack. Here's the one the 3 in the Pyrex dish. Similar, because they've got more space to move out, they have got a little bit bigger in terms of their footprint, but exactly the same. Obviously consistency, it's exactly the same dough. Nothing's happened to them or changed them since you last saw them. So yeah, they're just warming up to room temperature. That will take about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, and then we start to cook. So I'll come back and show you the cooking shortly.